Hello and welcome back to my channel, Emily's Creative Life. In today's video, I'll be showing you how I made this monochromatic card using stamps and ink blending. Let's get into it. Here I'm using a piece of Cougar 110-pound cardstock and a stamp set by Simon Says Stamp, Bold Flowers, with an acrylic block, and I will be using a leaf cluster image from that set, and some Stampin' Up! Inks. This first color is Gable Green. I will stamp that a few times repeatedly up at the top of the page, and then I will go ahead and switch colors. The next color in this set of greens I'm using is Green Galore. I was kind of trying to do an ombre, I guess you could say, going from the top to the bottom of lightest to darkest. So I just kind of rotated that stamp in lots of different directions and overlapped them a little bit and tried to get them to blend in a way. This next color is certainly Celery. Doing that exact same thing. And in between each color I'm using a microfiber cloth to wipe off the stamp. This last color is Wild Wasabi, and that will be at the very bottom of the card. And after I got all these other ones down here, I decided there wasn't quite enough of that Gable Green up at the very top, so I came back in with that one and added a few more leaves to the top. I'm using my blender brush and those same inks, and I'm starting with that Gable Green on the outside, blending mostly to the center of that card panel, and then I will be going to the next darkest, the Green Galore, just out a little bit further, so it's not quite to the center like the other one was. And then this certainly Celery, again doing the same thing, bringing it more towards the edge and less in the middle. I wanted to almost give it the effect that a light was hitting the center of this panel so that it would be lightest in the middle and darkest around the edges. And then that last color, Wild Wasabi. And that just really brings in that contrast. As you can see, it really brings the entire panel to life, I think. When I finished with that, I used my Tonic guillotine paper trimmer to trim that down to a 4" by 5 1/4" inch panel. I'm then using my EK Tools scoring board and a piece of Cougar cardstock to score it 5 1/2 inches for a top folding note card. I'm using my Teflon bone folder to crease that. And then I will adhere that down onto that card panel. And then I'm using a die by Sizzix. It's the Songbird die, and a couple of sentiments from this Simon Says Stamp Big Thanks Words stamp set. I'm die cutting that Songbird die from just that same Cougar cardstock. I just thought that that would match nicely with the leaf background. So here I'm testing that inked panel on, or testing some embossing powder on the inked panel because it was so heavily soaked with ink. I wanted to make sure that embossing powder would not stick, and it did. So then I used my Wagner heat gun to make sure that that was nice and dry before I did my heat embossing on it. And as you can see, it just came right off there. So I will put that into my stamp positioning tool and place that Songbird die where I want it, and that will give me the placement to put my sentiment. And once I've got that down, I remove that die, or the die cut from that panel, and then treat that with my antistatic powder bag and use some Versamark ink to stamp that down. I will be using some Hero Arts white embossing powder on that, and then I set that with my Wagner heat gun. And then I do the same thing, placing that the next part of the sentiment underneath of the large thanks in there, and again using that white embossing powder. So here I'm adhering that panel down, and I'm using some Burtec foam tape to the back of that card panel. Remove the release paper and then add that down onto my white card base. And then some Tombow mono liquid glue on the back of that Songbird die cut to adhere that onto that inked panel. So I went ahead and put an acrylic block on that to give it a minute to dry, and then I'm using some clear gemstones and some green gemstones and some Distress Collage medium in the matte finish to adhere those down, and my wax pencil. And then after I get those all adhered down, that will complete the card. I hope you like this card as much as I do. It was a fun one to create. I love that monochromatic background. I think it turned out so fun. And I will be back with another video soon. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.